Hello everyone. Well, we're going to be doing some traveling in Switzerland, and actually it looks like it might be a little bit of a mini series where we travel around Switzerland. First we start out with a bit of a geography lesson. The green part is what we call the Jura, which is lower mountains. The yellow part is Mittelland, which is relatively flat, where most cities and towns are, and the brown area is what we call the Alps, which is very sparsely populated because it's too harsh to be building on. Now in this map we're going to talk a little bit about the language. As you know, Switzerland has 4 official languages, the largest area being Swiss German, which like we write in German, but we have our own dialect, which actually varies from area to area. And then we have the French, which is the blue, Italian, which is the green, and then the Romansh is, I guess you call that light brown area. So we're going to travel actually in the French part for starters. Now we're taking a gondola to go up to Weissenstein. And we were lucky that our dear cousin Claire was hosting us, and with her husband Peter and her brother Carl. Actually, Carl treated us for this little trip up the mountain. So you see a view looking south towards the Alps. And here is Carl and Claire taking a break. It wasn't really strenuous hiking, but Carl wasn't too well. So you can actually see that the mountains are what we call tall mountains. So then next day we went to Friburg and visited this church, which was probably, I don't know, 500-600 years old, but it was beautiful. And it looks like it's the back door. And we kind of made the mistake that we were told, oh, you can go up the tower. So we said, okay, let's do it. Look at the handrail all carved in that stone. And see, each stone actually is part of the center column, just winds its way up. So that must have been one heck of a job trying to build that thing. And look how the stone is worn. So I think there's been a lot of people walking up and down. It was over 100 steps, and we were pooped by the time we got to the top. This is Danny and Morella, and Karen, and Danny and Morella give us this trip around the French part of Switzerland. Now we're looking down into the town of Fribourg, and you see it's quite old, and all tile roofs. And you can see they had to build some massive bridges over the valley. I guess over the millions of years the rivers carved it out. And here's a castle, one of the old castles across the valley. This looks like it's a newer bridge, and you can see how the land is really fertile. No rocks in that field. I guess looking down at the town, it was worth climbing that bell tower. It's actually amazing. And you see a lot of this, like the building at the far end, that might have been at one point either a seminary or some educational building. And so anyway, we went back down and we admired the stained glass window. However, I was kind of looking at this one a little closer, and I kind of thought to myself, I don't think I want my kids to look at that. They'd be scaring a little 5-year-old looking at that. So we all went and walked around town a little bit, and they were still doing some excavating in the old part, finding old foundations. And I think that the issue to have a fundraiser for a new wheelbarrow, that poor thing seen better days. So we walked in the old part and checked out all the different stores and restaurants. Well, this one here was kind of funny. And basically what it's saying is, enjoy your wedding, because it won't be long before she's going to put the pants on. Anyway, I guess in the olden days they might have had their challenges too. And this looks like it's the original City Hall, and don't know exactly how old. This is the newer City Hall, and interesting, a lot of flowers, and they must have problems with some vandalism. They got a lot of steel rods covering the windows. And this is a linden tree with a fountain, and there's a famous song that was written about the linden tree and the fountain meeting a sweetheart there. And in throughout Switzerland, you see a lot of these fountains that actually, most of them, as kids, we always drank the water and it seemed to be no issue. And but they're all generally are gravity fed, there's no pumps involved. I really was impressed with that sign. I mean, imagine put a sign up with a lamp like that. And I was trying to figure out what's harder, to cut a round tree or just trim it square. And I think making it square is probably harder. Now, one thing you probably don't realize is this area is actually famous for the Swiss watchmaking. And anywhere from Geneva all the way up to this area, there's a lot of different watch manufacturing. There's going back probably 400 years. Of course, the biggest one lately is the Swatch manufacturer, and this is their office and manufacturing facility in Biel. So it's all stretched quite a long way down. And what I found interesting is how the main buyers look like the Americans are buying the most of the watches. And on this chart, it compares, you can see the sales dropped in 2020 through COVID, and then 21 it jumped back up again. But what was interesting to me was that the mechanical watches were still more in demand than the electronic watches. And I guess part of that would probably be Philippe Patek and some of the high-end watches. They still tend to be mechanical watches. You spend that kind of money, you probably want to have the real McCoy. Well, now we're off to Gruyere, which is a little bit further south from Friburg, and a little more into the Alps. But what's interesting, Gruyere obviously is famous for the cheese, but the old town Gruyere is actually a bit up on a hillside, and there's also a castle up there. So we actually had to carry our luggage up there. You could not drive into the old part, except I guess if you had a reservation for the hotel, and they would pick it up. And that neat sculpture as you went up the pathway with the girl with the goats. And at the very top, there's this big old castle. Again, they probably over the years they had to replace some of the woodwork, but they still made an effort to have nice flowers. This is looking down at the church of Gruyere. You see it was a massive fireplace to do the cooking. Of course, it's not a real castle if you don't have a wine cellar. And actually those barrels look fairly new. Now this is looking through the old town of Gruyere at night. This is the hotel we're staying in. And it's very pleasant there. And in the bedroom they had this nice armoire. And it was just amazing, the woodwork on it. And you see the inlay, the work they've done, it's just amazing. And then outside the hotel room, when you look down, you saw this beautiful formal garden. Well, we're off further south now. We're going to Lake Geneva, and this is Schloss Chillon. Now you're probably going to say to yourself, well, Karen certainly looks a lot younger. Well, I was looking for a picture from the Schloss Chillon on the outside, and the only one I could find was when Karen and I were there 51 years ago. So that explains that rather youthful look. Now we're going to have a bunch of pictures from the castle on the inside. The castle actually is built on a big rock projecting out into Lake Geneva. And this castle's been fought over quite a bit because of the various French factions wanted to own it and control the areas and collect taxes. These were a lot of these Middle Ages castles did. They basically were guardians but also collected taxes. And what always amazed me is when you look at the height of this building, and when they were built 600 years ago, they didn't have cranes or anything. They just, everything was pretty rough looking scaffolding probably, and guys climbing up and down. Now this is looking east towards Vallis, and we're actually going to be traveling up that valley to Zermatt. And I think they did a lot of restorations, at least at the woodwork. The other thing too is the masonry being that old, it's just holding up well, because Switzerland's climate is not that forgiving. And as you can see, the new highway up above the straddling the hillside. Well, we arrived in Zermatt, and Zermatt's actually an interesting town. It's very touristy, obviously, but also you're not allowed to drive your car. So we came up by train, and then there we just walked. They have I would call them small pickup trucks that but they're all electric. So then here we're going up to Gornagat, and the interesting part was that we actually went to the rail station in the evening to see, because there's a camera there that tells you what the weather conditions are up on top, which is actually quite nice, because if it's overcast or all foggy, you can't see what's happening. Anyways, a bit of a map. It tells you all about the mountains. I guess you all know what this one is. Well, there's a couple of happy tourists. Danny Marilla trying to figure out what Karen's trying to tell him. This area actually has the highest mountains in Switzerland and northern Italy and France, basically the whole Alpine chain. Looks like he's a bit overwhelmed, that fella. Well, it's time for a snack. No skipful and coffee, just perfect. Well, it's time to head back down, so we got back on the Grandhotel train, but we didn't take the train all the way down. We stopped, I guess it was half or 3/4 of the way down, and then we hiked the rest of the way, because we just felt like we needed some exercise. This is looking down at the Zermatt. Time for a break. Enjoy the view. Breathe in, breathe out. And this is a section where the rails for the trains are protected because of the avalanches that come thundering down, I guess, and because that train runs all winter long. And we're getting closer into town. The other thing that's interesting in that part of the Switzerland, they're using slate for the roof and big slabs, and I guess part of it was availability, but there's also some fierce winds in the area, and I guess just he wanted something there that doesn't blow away in a storm. And then we stopped by the cemetery, and as you can imagine, with all this mountain climbing going on, there's casualties. And they're coming from all around the world. See, like this one, he died in 1931 in Monte Rosa. It's too bad. Happens. Well, we're moving on, and we're got to go over an overpass. This is looking up. Looks like the Pass. So we're not going to go all the way up there. We're actually going to go up to our left. And you see on the just top of the flower is a glacier. And there's a little chapel there in the village down below. And this is looking at the Grimselpass. There's a dam up there. That's to create electricity. And now we're going up the other side, up the valley to Grindelwald. And that's we found a place in Grindelwald, and it was very pleasant there. This the next morning as we get up, looking up across the valley up to the Alps, even looking west, the sun is touching tops of the mountain. Not as tall as the other ones. So I look across the valley. And there was these guys, they're in like hang gliders. I guess they're basically like parachutes. And then we went up to Schynige Platte, and it actually has a botanical garden up there for alpine flowers. And these were these Alphorn musicians greeting us up there. And looks like some more seniors climbing out of the train. And actually, it's amazing. I don't know how old that train is, but it's doing this thing. Also, you see the track. They got a cogwheel, and that's what actually was propelling it up, and because otherwise you'd just be spinning your wheels on the steel. This is a famous Eiger, where people have been climbing it, trying to challenge it. But a lot of there's actually still some dead bodies hanging up in there. You can't get them out. This is looking down on the Rheinsee. Well, we get close to the top and time for a little break. That's the trail we went up a little more from the rail station, and then it's working our way over the other side. And there's a view from the restaurant up there. Karen found her friends there, little Swiss bells. Well, we hiked down a little more and worked our way back over to the train station. Well, the next day we went to see the Grandhotel in Giessbach, which is a hotel that was built over 100 years ago, and it was actually one of those grand hotels for the rich and famous. And you're looking west towards Interlaken over the Rheinsee, and looks like there is the scheduled ship come bringing some more tourists, I guess taking some away. And here's the happy gang enjoying. Karen, looks like Karen's having a beer and I'm having coffee. And in the lobby of the hotel, I had this very large display of a clock that shows all the mechanical parts. Well, anyway, I guess it's a sign to say, well, that's it for now, and we'll see you next time. Bye.